Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Technical Coordinating Committee meeting. I'm the Chairman, Tanique McCullough, and Director of City of Winston-Salem. Thank you for joining us, and we will call our meeting to order. Oh, I did not do one thing. I've got to read the virtual statements. Due to the pandemic, all members of the Winston-Salem Urban Area Technical Coordinating Committee are participating virtually. All members will vote by a roll call. Each member will be recognized, and at that time, the member will state his or her vote. So I will ask Kelly Garvin to take the role, and during that time, she will identify what organization you're representing, because we do have two new members joining us. We have Pam Cook with our Transportation Planning Division, and then Adam Barr, who is an alternate from Davie County. So that our new members will know who everyone is, Kelly will identify which organization you're representing. So Kelly, can you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. I will start by calling the voting members, and then I will give an opportunity for the non-voting members to introduce themselves as I call upon them. So Kelly Bennett is with Forsyth County.
Here.
Carrie Gentry.
Excuse me, 1 minute, Kelly, I'm sorry. If you would be so kind to turn your cameras on for those of you who can, so that our new people will know who you are. Thank you. Sorry about that, Kelly. Thank you.
So we said Kelly Bennett from Forsyth County, and then Carrie Gentry from Forsyth County OEAP. Carrie?
Yes, and it's Office of Environmental Assistance and Protection. It's a long acronym.
Thank you. Then Tanique McCullough, you introduced yourself already. And I have Pam Cook.
Yes, I'm here.
From Transportation Planning Division.
That's correct.
And I assume you will be the voting member because I see that Andy is also on the call.
Yes, I will be.
Okay. All right. Then I have the next voting member. I have Pat Ivy as from the Division 9, Division Engineer. Pat?
He appears to be trying to unmute.
Okay. And the next voting member is myself. I am Kelly Garvin. I am the Planning Development Coordinator here with the MPO. And then we have Kirk Erickson, who's the Transportation Planning Coordinator with City County Planning Board. Kirk?
Good afternoon, everyone. And Kelly, probably just to make everyone aware, a couple months ago, I received promotion to the Deputy Director of Planning and Development. So we are currently advertising for my previous position, and we will let you know when we have a new representative, but you still get me for the meantime.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. And then I have Andrew Midwell from Bermuda Run.
Hello, I'm here.
And then the next voting member is Nasser from Village of Clements.
Here.
And I have Chris Jensen
Here.
from the town of Kernersville. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
And my next voting member is Mitzi Meadows from Rule Hall.
I'm here.
And then I have, we thought Mr. Adam Barr was going to represent Davie County, but I thought I saw Mr. Johnny Easter on the line. Is it Easter? He's also the representative from Davie County. Taniki's the primary. All right, I will move on to, did I miss any voting members? Okay.
Kelly, I'm here. Mark Kirshner with Park. Don't think Scott's on the line.
Right, I got you.
Kelly, this is Donna Woodson. I have joined as well for Winston-Salem Transit Authority.
All right, Donna. All right, and then for my non-voting members, for the purpose of just introduction, I'll just go down the line of who have seen thus far. So we saw Andy Bailey from Transportation Planning.
Yes, I'm here.
And then I saw Alex Rottenberry from Integrated Mobility Division.
Good afternoon.
And I saw Fred Haith, NCDOT Division 9.
Present.
I think the next person I saw was Richard Jones from Davidson County Transportation.
Here.
And Winston-Salem MPO staff. I saw Jeff Fansler.
Present.
And then I saw Laura Nixon, who's our recording secretary. She may be trying to unmute.
Oh, hello.
Okay. And then we have Hunter Stazak.
Hi, everyone.
And Matthew Burchek.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Matthew Duchan.
Yep. Good afternoon.
And I think I covered, did I miss anybody that is a member or a voting or non-voting member?
Hey, Kelly, This is Pat. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, it's Philip. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this is Suzette Morales from Federal Highways.
All right.
And this is Jordan Payne of Forsyth County. I'm here too.
Very good.
That concludes it.
Well, again, thank you, Kelly, and thank you everyone for attending. We will get started with our agenda. The first item on the agenda relates to our public comments. Kelly, did we have anyone signed up for public comments, or is there anyone present that wanted to make a comment?
None that I know about.
All right. Okay. Well, we will move on to our action items. We seem to have quite a few, about, well, we originally had 7 action items. And one of the items related to adopting the remote participation will need to be an information item, but I will discuss that when we get to it. So we will start with the consideration of the May 19th, 2022 TCC meeting minutes. The minutes are enclosed. Hopefully you all have had an opportunity to review, and I will ask if anyone would like to make a motion to accept or make a motion at all.
Trinique, I'd like to make a quick comment. Not a big deal, but I think I'm listed as an alternate on members. And I think I'm the primary, and Catherine Garner is the alternate, I think.
Very good.
And with that minor change, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Chris.
Second, Kirk.
Thank you, Kurt. It has been moved and seconded that we will accept the minutes with the change that Chris has offered. And yes, it's been moved and seconded, and I will ask Kelly to please call the roll for the vote.
Yes, ma'am. Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Pam Cook,
Yes.
Pat Ivy.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kirk,
Yes.
Andrew Midwell,
Yes.
Nasser,
Yes.
Chris voted yes. Missy Meadows,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna Woodson,
Yes.
and that concludes it. It's unanimous.
Thank you. All right, item number 3 was the consideration of an item to adopt a remote participation policy in meetings for the Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. And one of the conditions of voting on this item was that we would need to be face-to-face, and because of things outside of our control, we are meeting virtually. Our next meeting, however, if the emergency order is lifted, it will be required that we meet face-to-face, and at that time, then we can take a vote on this item. But I will turn it over to Kelly to discuss in more detail if we want to, and then we can, if we need to make any changes or any recommended changes come at our TAC meeting, then we would make those adjustments and vote on it at our next meeting. So Kelly, was there anything that you wanted to share or discuss related to this item?
Yes, ma'am. As you mentioned, this is an item that would allow us to continue to meet virtually. The recommendation in this item is intended to be so that we either meet completely in person or completely remote. Staff is making the recommendation that we meet completely virtually unless it's for election of officers, so usually for us in January, and in the case that we have a public hearing. So those are the item needs to be edited to be a little bit more clear that we're not suggesting that we do a mixed type meeting where it's both virtual and in person, because we do not at this point have the ability to do that in a orderly fashion. So the recommendation was that we do meet virtually for most of our meetings.
Are there any questions that anyone had related to the item itself? Very good. All right. We will then move on to our next action item, which is a consideration of the fiscal year 2020 through 2029 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modifications for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. And Hunter Stazak will cover this item.
Great, thank you. The fiscal year 2020 to 2029 MTIP is a comprehensive list of all transportation projects programmed for the Winston-Salem urban area and must be a subset of the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, as well as match the Winston-Salem MPO projects in the FY 2020 to 2029 STIP. The 2045 MTP and AQCDR were adopted by the TAC on September 17, 2015. The North Carolina Department of Transportation regularly updates the STIP to include new projects and modify existing projects. Any STIP amendment for new statewide projects or projects within the Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization triggers the amendment of the MTIP. STIP amendments for regionally significant projects that have significant project revisions or cross FHWA 4-year funding periods or modeling horizons requiring a QCDR. Modifications to the STIP do not require adoption, but are provided for information. The attached document describes the additions, deletions, amendments, and modifications to the 2020 to 2029 MTIP. As required by the MPO's public participation policy, the amendments and modifications to the 20 to 2029 MTIP were made available for public review for at least 30 days between April 11th through May 12th. No comments were received during that time. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Hunter. Were there any questions for Hunter? All right, hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion? Please.
So moved, Pat Ivy.
Thank you, Pat. Would anyone like to second?
Kelly Garvin, second.
Thank you, Kelly. It has been moved and seconded that we will accept the item. Kelly, please call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Tani,
Yes.
Pam Cook,
Yes.
Pat Ivy made the first. I made the second. Kirk Erickson,
Yes.
Andrew Midwell,
Yes.
Nasser,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Misty Meadows,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Donna Woodson.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Our next item is a consideration of a request to reallocate funds for fiscal year 2017, 2018, and 2019 for the Section 5307 job access and reverse commute projects, and fiscal year 2013, 2014, 2017, 2018, and 2019 for Section 5310 projects. Matt Duchesne will cover this item.
Thanks, Tanique. The Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization staff is requesting the reallocation of funding for several awards across FTA Section 5310 and 5307 JARC. Subrecipients utilize 5310 and 5307 JARC funding to provide transportation access for seniors and for individuals with disabilities, as well as for low-income individuals requiring transportation to access jobs where they would otherwise not have access. Redistributing these funds to subrecipients we are certain will be able to use those funds to support community needs is one of the primary goals in transit management, so the prior year funding grants can be closed. This will also allow for easier transition processes in future fiscal years. For fiscal year 19, Section 5310, the town of Kernersville will relinquish $45,000, which will be redistributed to 3 other subrecipients because they have outstanding reimbursement balances for previous years. For fiscal years 2017 and 2018, Section 5310, Wake Forest Baptist Health Campus will relinquish $8,905 from both years because use of this funding was not pursued by their agency. For fiscal year 20, Section 5307 JARC, Horizons Residential Care. For fiscal year 2019, Section 5307 JARC Community Transportation Program. For fiscal year 2018, Section 5307 JARC, Winston-Salem Urban League will relinquish reimbursement awards to be redistributed to subrecipients in need of further funding. Horizons cannot meet the intended uses of the funding, while CTP and the Urban League were affected by COVID-19. The attached tables reference what subrecipients are having their funds redistributed, as well as which subrecipients will be receiving further funds for future reimbursement. This item is being brought to TAC as a group, so many reallocations can take place at one time and make way for further and more efficient reallocations as needed. And I can take any questions that you may have.
All right. Are there any questions for Matt?
I have a quick question, Matt. This is Alex from Integrated Mobility Division. I guess my question is, so my understanding based on the packet and I know there's several agenda items following this one. They're very similar with different FTA funds. So when these awards were allocated, I'm assuming that, because as you just mentioned, the ones that won the awards were unable to spend that money, and so you're reallocating it. Were these other projects that had applied, or I'm just kind of curious to know, was it just a first come, first serve? Was there like a process by which these were awarded? Did you revisit old projects that weren't awarded that funds? I'm just kind of curious to know how the process was done.
So every year, or as annually as possible, we have a call for projects that different subrecipients can apply for funding for 5310 and 5307 JARC specifically. And so it's not really first come, first serve as much as there's scoring criteria that we base those applications on, and they're sent out for external review. So this is typically an annual process. And so in this case, we're kind of recovering a lot of different circumstances with lost funds from COVID, and for projects that a lot of subrecipients had originally committed to that no longer can.
So the money, is it going to so let's say we're talking about 2020 funds, were they given to an agency that had also applied in 2020? Like, was it in apples to apples, or was it across, they applied in 2022, and so I'm just kind of curious about that.
So in our processes, the year that you apply for the funding previously, you are eligible to receive that funding through reallocation, and we reach out to subrecipients that were eligible to receive that funding. And so in our processes, if you applied in the year that the funding is eligible to reallocated, you're able to receive that funding as part of a reallocation. And so in future years, it'll be a similar process where, as long as you apply, you have the ability to receive funds and also have funds reallocated to you should another subrecipient who originally was awarded be no longer able to use those funds.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Is this an 80-20 match?
It is.
Okay.
Well, JARC is 50-50 and
50-50
is 80-20.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Very good. Are there any other questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
It's Mark Kirshner, so moved.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
This is Kirk, second.
Thank you, Kurt. It has been moved and seconded that we will accept this item. Kelly, please call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Pam Cook,
Yes.
Pat Ivy.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kirk voted yes. Andrew Meadwell,
Yes.
Nasser, Nasser.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you. Chris,
Yes.
Misty Meadows,
Yes.
Mark voted yes, and Donna Woodson.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. All right, we will move on to item number 6, which is the consideration of the Federal Transit Administration Formula Program, Section 5307, funding allocations for the Winston-Salem urban area for fiscal year 2022, and plans to amend the MTIP. Matt Duchesne will cover this item as well.
Transit systems located in urbanized areas of more than 200,000 in population are eligible to use FTA Section 5307 funds for operating and capital assistance. FTA announced an allocation of $6,703,372 for fiscal year 22. There currently are 3 transit agencies in the MPO eligible to receive 5307 funding based upon data reported to the National Transit Database, or NTD. Those 3 are Davidson County Transportation, Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation, and Winston-Salem Transit Authority. The number of eligible agencies may increase in future years. Additionally, activities traditionally eligible under the Job Access Reverse Commute Program, which provides for job access for low-income individuals, continue to be an eligible activity for these funds. Based upon policies adopted by the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO in 2017, funding will be distributed in accordance with the percentages developed by FTA as shown in Table 3A on their website. Based upon those percentages in that table, it is recommended that Davidson County Transportation receive $240,738. Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation receives $746,080, and Winston-Salem Transit Authority receive $5,661,554, and $55,000 be used for traditional 5307 JARC programs. Each year, MPO staff shall and did coordinate a joint allocation meeting with eligible agencies to confirm that the funding identified can be used by the agency, and staff will use that information for recommendation to the TAC for final approval and distribution. MPO staff coordinated a meeting with the 3 transit agencies, and all 3 agreed with the funding recommendations provided. Staff will also recommend approval of an amendment to the MTIP. And I can also take questions on this as well.
All right, does anyone have questions for Matt related to this item? Okay, hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion, please?
Motion to approve item.
Donna Woodson, second.
Very good, it has been moved and seconded. Kelly, please call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Gary Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Pam Cook,
Yes.
Pat Ivy.
Yes.
I vote yes. Kirk,
Yes.
Andrew Midwell.
Yes.
I think Nasser voted yes. Chris Jensen.
Yes.
Misty Meadows.
Yes.
And then Mark.
Yes.
And then Donna voted yes. It's unanimous.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. All right. We will move on to item number 7, which is a consideration of the Federal Transit Administration Section 5339 Bus and Bus Facilities Grant Program funding allocation for the Winston-Salem urban area MPO for fiscal year 2022 and plans to amend the MTIP. Matt Duchesne will cover this item as well.
The Federal Transit Administration Section 5339 program is a formula-based grant program to replace, rehabilitate, and purchase buses and bus facilities. The program provides available federal resources to eligible direct recipients that operate fixed-route bus services or that allocate funding to fixed-route bus operators. The program originated through the Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act, or MAP 21, which changed the program from discretionary to formula-based. Funding is now designated to states and designated recipients in urbanized areas of 200,000 people or more. The Winston-Salem urban area is eligible to receive $556,276 in fiscal year 2022. WISTA is requesting to use the available funds to purchase 3 transit vans to replace aging fleet, and the remaining funds for transit facility rehabilitation projects and capital maintenance. The public participation period was held for 30 days between May 23rd and June 23rd of 2022. No comments were received. In order for WISTA to have these funds available, the steps to follow include approval by the TAC, programming and amending of the MTIP and the 2020 to 2029 STIP, and submission to FTA. I can take any questions on this as well.
All right, any questions for Matt? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Kelly Garvin makes a motion.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nasser. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Kelly, please call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Gary Gentry,
Yes.
Tanique,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
I voted yes. Kirk Erickson,
Yes.
Andrew Midwell, Andrew, I'm not sure if Andrew is still with us. Nasser?
Yes.
Yes. Misty Meadows?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Donna Woodson?
Yes.
It is unanimous.
All right, very good. We're almost there, guys. All right, our next item is the consideration of an amendment to the Winston-Salem Urban Area Fiscal Year 2020 through 2029 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program to adjust surface transportation block grant direct attributable funding for 3 select projects in the Village of Clemens. Matthew Burchett will cover this item.
All right, thank you, Tanique, and good afternoon again, everybody. The Village of Clemens is requesting additional funding for 2 sidewalk projects along Harper Road. Those projects are EB 5960 and EB 6040. The scope of those projects include the design and construction of sidewalk from Frank Morgan Elementary School to the Jerry Long YMCA and from Village Point Drive to east of the I-40 interchange, respectively. Both projects were evaluated, recommended, and approved for STBGDA funding in previous years by our TAC. The village wishes to transfer all surface transportation block grant direct attributable STBGDA funds from another project, U4741PE, which was a Highway 158 sidewalk and Yadkin River Greenway Phase 1 project, and transferred the funds from that project to the above mentioned projects. The village would like to transfer $738,640 to EB 6040 and $1,371,760 to EB 5960. The proposed total federal funding amounts for EB 6040 and 5960 are $1,269,840 and $2,371,760 respectively. The village has cited a few reasons for canceling the Highway 158 sidewalk and Yadkin River Greenway project. You can see those there. There were some issues with periods of inactivity due to funding uncertainty, some increases in the cost of the project, and potential for roadway expansion by NCDOT. Because U4741PE was underway, the village has agreed to repay the already expended DA amount of $181,121. Also, the village is prepared to contribute the local match of $527,600 to the projects to match the federal funding portion of $2,110,400. Attached to this item are a few maps detailing the locations of the project in question and some actions from the Village of Clemens Council. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, any questions for Matthew?
I actually have a question, but it is completely it's related, but kind of not. And somebody else might be able to answer this for me. For the interlocal agreements with these projects between us and NCDOT, will these automatically be adjusted after we move through this process of TCC and TAC, or do we have to essentially go back and ask to amend those interlocal agreements that we have?
So I'll take that. So yes. So what will have to happen is none of these are, well, one of this is in this, 2 is in the STIP. So the STIP will have to be amended to reflect those changes. And then once that's completed, you'll have to ask for an agreement, an amendment to your agreement with the state.
Okay. So we'll have to go through the LGA again. And
yes.
I mean, okay. Got it. Just clarifying, because we finally heard back from the 5960 a few days ago for approval on NCDOT's EBS, and it hasn't, it's not reflecting obviously what's going on now. So we don't want to necessarily sign it if we got to amend it. Okay. All right. I'm greatly thankful.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Nasser. Is there a second?
It's Mark Kirshner, second.
Thank you, Mark. All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we would accept this item. Please, Kelly, call the roll for the vote.
Kelly Bennett,
Yes.
Carrie Gentry,
Yes.
Danique,
Yes.
Pam Cook,
Yes.
Pat Ivy.
Yes, ma'am.
I vote yes. Kirk,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Nasser voted yes. Chris Jensen,
Yes.
Misty Meadows,
Yes.
and Mark voted yes. Donna Woodson,
Yes.
it is unanimous.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we've made it through all of our action items, so we will now go to our items for information for future action. And the item number 9 is a review of the fiscal year 2020 through 2029 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program amendments and modifications for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. And that's Hunter Stazak who will cover that for us.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. The fiscal year 2020 to 2029 MTIP is a comprehensive list of all transportation projects programmed for the Winston-Salem urban area and must be a subset of the Winston-Salem Urban Area 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, as well as match the MPO's projects in the FY 2020 to 2029 STIP. The 2045 MTP and the AQCDR were adopted by the TAC on September 17, 2015. The North Carolina Department of Transportation regularly updates the STIP to include new projects and modify existing projects. Any STIP amendment for new statewide projects or projects within the MPO triggers the amendment of the MTIP. STIP amendments for regionally significant projects that have significant project revisions or cross the FHWA 4-year funding period or modeling horizon years require an AQCDR. Modifications to the STIP do not require adoption but are provided for information. The attached document here describes the additions, deletions, amendments, and modifications to the Winston-Salem urban area fiscal year 2020 to 2029 MTIP. As required by the MPO's public participation policy, the amendments and modifications to the 2020 to 2029 MTIP were made available for public review for at least 30 days between June 12th to July 14th. No comments were received during that time. The notable additions here to the STIP include the addition of the NC8 to Oak Summit Road intersection improvement project that was done at the request of the MPO. And the modifications here were generally to allow for additional time for planning and design for various projects that you'll see listed in the enclosed. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Hunter?
I have a couple if you don't mind.
Sure, Alex.
Just to break it up, right? Got to ask some questions.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Hunter doesn't. Just out of curiosity, Hunter, I see this as, amending the TIP at some point in the future. Has it already been done, or is it going to also be done to the MTP as well? Since the STIP. Well, I guess it doesn't go that far, does it? I mean, I feel like some of the projects I don't know. I guess let me ask that question and see what your answer is.
I'll defer, I think, to Kelly on that one. I see that she was responding to that one.
Yes, so this does not require an amendment to the MTIP, the MTP. So this is only amending our MTIP, and we're following what the state's doing. So if the state's amending their STIP, we have to amend our MTIP to reflect, and vice versa.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know, because I feel like the STIP had been updated quite a ways. At least I remember seeing in some other MPO meetings that I attended, some projects been moved pretty significantly far back. So your TIP goes for 10 years?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I've seen that anywhere else before. That's very interesting. Okay. I think that sounds good. I think that's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Very good.
This
Are
is
there any other
Suzette.
questions? Yes, Suzette.
I do have a comment. So Winston-Salem doesn't need to do conformity anymore. So in your summaries, you have air quality conformity determination reports, but the Winston-Salem area does not need to do conformity.
Okay.
Thank you, Suzette. We'll make sure to remove that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Very good. All right, we'll move on to item number 10, which is a review of the program management plan update for reporting, managing, and overseeing FTA Section 5310 and 5307 JARC grant funds and the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. Matt Duchan will cover this item.
Thank you. This program management plan is a document that describes the Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's policies and procedures for administering the FTA Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Award, or Section 5310. FTA has defined the goal of the Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program in FTA Circular C9070.1G to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities throughout the country by removing barriers to transportation services and expanding the transportation mobility options available. Toward this goal, FTA provides financial assistance for transportation services planned, designed, and carried out to meet the special transportation needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities. Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization also utilizes the PMP to manage Section 5307 JARC funds similarly to that of 5310. JARC funds enable low-income communities to access employment and educational opportunities via human services coordinated transit. Program management plan was developed through consulting with HDR, which included assessing and analyzing the grant management and oversight processes, along with the overall functions of 5310 and 5307 JARC programs within the greater transit context in the urban area. And so in this case, I do ask that you hold off on asking any questions until after the next info item, which will be on the Human Services Transportation Plan. And then to follow will be Patrick McDonough, who works with our consultant HDR on those plans. And he'll be giving a short presentation on the two plans, which will be implemented in tandem.
All right. So we will then go to item number 12, which is a review of the amendment to the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 Unified Planning Work Program for, I jumped ahead. Review of the Human Services Transportation Coordination Plan Update. That's item number 11. Matt.
No problem. Federal transportation law requires that the Winston-Salem Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization develop a locally coordinated public transportation human services transportation plan. The purpose of the Human Services Transportation Plan is to improve transportation services for persons with disabilities, older adults, and low-income individuals through a better coordinated transportation system. This plan is used to coordinate public transit, paratransit, and transit services provided by local agencies and nonprofits. Federal law also requires that the plan be developed locally through a process that includes representatives of public, private, and nonprofit transportation and human services providers and participation by the public. Plan updates are mandatory every 5 years to identify needs of the transportation disadvantaged. Additionally, this plan will help guide decision-making and the selection of transit projects supported by FTA funds. This plan update was developed through consulting with HDR as well, which included an intensive public outreach process, extensive existing conditions and mapping analyses, and identification of major goals for human services transportation in our metropolitan planning organization. And with that, I can pass on to Patrick, who will be giving the short presentation on these two plans.
Thank you, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Excellent. Okay. And thank you, Hunter. Can you please go ahead to the next slide? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick McDonough, and I'm a senior transit planner with HDR in our Raleigh office. Also, I used to live in Winston-Salem for 8 years, so I'm a friend of the city, and it's great to be working with you. Really quick, I know Matt and some of the other items have covered a lot of content related to human service transportation today, so I'll try to be as efficient as I can be. But just as a review at a high level, what's an HST plan? It's identifying the needs of individuals with disabilities, of low-income individuals and senior citizens, and then assessing what their needs are and then trying to identify gaps in those needs that the HST ecosystem can meet, and then developing strategies to make sure that we're doing a better job going forward of meeting those needs. Next, please. So let's talk a little bit about the funding streams that are available. In terms of federal programs, you've heard a bit today about Job Access Reverse Commute. There's also the federal 5310 program focusing on enhanced mobility of seniors and disabled individuals. And then under 5311, formula grants for rural areas. Within the state, we have the State Maintenance and Assistant Program. Next, please. Winston-Salem is fortunate to have a pretty robust ecosystem of those who are interested in participating together in making a well-run HST ecosystem. There's a great umbrella organization called Forsyth in Motion that helps bring these folks together. But just really quickly running these down on the fixed route side, we have WISTA, PART, and Davidson County. In terms of demand response, we have Davidson County, the town of Carnersville, Uvalde in Yadkin County, and of course, TransAid with WISTA. On the private nonprofit provider side, we have the Shepherd Center, the Life Center, the Workshop of Davidson. We have private for-profit partners in Here to There and support systems of Forsyth County, and then nonprofit stakeholders who are also not providers. So they are engaging with people who need human service transit, but they're not making the trips themselves. That would include the Enrichment Center and Wake Forest Baptist Health. And then finally, at the local government level, there's also involvement from building integrated communities. And I would say if there's one slide that I would like you to go home remembering today about the trends and the challenges that human service transportation face, it's this one right here. And that is that our population over age 65 is growing 3 times faster than the total population at large. And this trend is true in all of the regional counties and true across the state. So let's take a quick look here. If you look down at the chart below, you'll see from 2010 to 2019, Forsyth County had a 9.4% overall population growth rate. But if you go to the right, you'll see that the growth rate for age 65 plus grew by 34%. And then if you continue to go down to the very bottom, you'll see North Carolina, the population growth rate of 10.7%, and the age 65 plus growth rate of 39%. Looking at the counties adjacent to Forsyth, at Davidson, it's a 3% population growth rate and a 32% growth in the age 65 plus. So what you're seeing here is that we have a population that is the target of this service program that is growing anywhere from 3 to 10 times as fast as the population at large. And this is a growing community. So this definitely just puts the scope and scale of the trend we're trying to keep up with in perspective. Next, please. So one more takeaway from that prior slide is that if you were to look at Forsyth County and say, how fast is the 65 plus population growing on an annualized basis, it's about 3.7% per year if you broke that prior slide out to an annual rate. Now let's talk about funding. So funding, unfortunately, is not growing at 3.7%. When we look at what's coming in from the federal level, the largest source, the $5310, that only grew on average 1.3% from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 21. So you can see that the population growth is greatly outstripping the growth in funding to address needs. Next, please. So I'm now going to talk us through a few key findings. And we did this work during 2020 and 2021 gathering survey data. So we unfortunately couldn't meet people in person, but like we did here today, we had Zoom meetings with the providers in 4 different groups. We did a survey also of 70 plus individuals who are users of the service today. And you can see on the right, the zip codes, we got a pretty good geographic distribution of folks distributed all across the MPO urbanized area. So some stories out of that. What are the top destinations people use the human service transit system for? Well, work is right up there at the top, along with medical appointments, and then also personal trips. But then we asked people, what are the barriers you're experiencing? And over a third of them reported that there was at some point a trip they wanted to make, but they couldn't make it because of the lack of transportation. Nevertheless, there are some opportunities that I think that ecosystem can take advantage of strategically, and we'll get to strategies about that in just a minute. But one of them is that many participants who took the survey haven't tried all of the options that are available to them. And so that may be because they don't fully have all the information available or to know that they're eligible, but that's an opportunity to get those folks more engaged. Another thing, cost was top of mind for many of the people in the survey. And as we know, inflation has gone up since the time when these survey responses were gathered. And finally, access and eligibility to programs is a concern. People are not sure they're eligible, or maybe they are, or maybe they're just a little bit too young for a certain program. And then finally, of course, in the survey, we were hearing for how COVID-19 had changed everyone's travel behavior significantly. Next, please. So here I want to talk a little bit about service gaps and then the service needs. So one of the things here is that we're hearing that curb to curb service, where someone, can walk out of their house and get picked up at the curb and taken to the curb of, a medical facility or another destination, that's not always enough anymore. And that more door-to-door service is needed, where an operator or a car driver, volunteer driver gets out and helps the individual who's being transported to an appointment or to the door of their home on their return trip. And one of our providers had a great quote that I've roughly captured here. They said that the human service transit ecosystem was designed for those aged 65 to 70 living at home. But medical progress has allowed people even older to live at home. And now we're transporting many folks who have 80 to 90 years of 80 to 90 years of age. They're more likely to be frail, and they're more likely to have cognitive challenges. So the clientele who is being served by the HST system is changing and presenting new challenges. For those who may also be able to use WISTA fixed route bus services, we also heard challenge that folks said, I would love to be able to use the bus, but there's not enough sidewalks, or their crosswalk is lacking in my community, and I'm afraid to cross the street because I might not be able to make it before the light would change. And also that the frequency of the bus service doesn't always support somebody getting to a precisely timed appointment. A third challenge we have is sort of related to how the community is growing. Our medical facilities are spreading out. When I lived in Winston-Salem in the 90s and early 2000s, most of the key medical facilities were in Winston-Salem, Wake Forest Baptist Health, Forsyth County Hospital near Haynes Mall. But now there's Novant out in Clemens and Wake Forest Davie Medical Center, and the VA is moving to Kernersville. So the destinations that the HST providers have to reach are more scattered. So that's more time going out and back in. On the service needs side, those who live outside the 3/4 mile service area for WISTA's Transaid have inconsistent access. We heard in the survey, somebody said, I can see the city limits of Winston-Salem from my house, but I'm out in the rural part of the county. And when I call WISTA, they tell me, well, if we have a vehicle going out that way, and if we have some space, and if your trip is similarly timed, we'll do our best to pick you up. But sometimes WISTA doesn't have the capacity to do that. So really the need here is we need more drivers and more vehicles to try to help reach those individuals who are interested, but we can't reach today. Next, please. So what are some of the recommendations in the plan? So I'm going to talk about implementation in terms of the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And the short term is really next couple of years through 2024. The first is changing the scoring weights for projects in the program management plan. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. The second is about customer information. We recommend creating passenger and provider portal pages on the MPO's website, kind of a one-stop shop where somebody who is a provider can come in and get all the information on here's how you become an applicant, here's how you do your reporting, here's the information to be in compliant with FDA regulations. And then on the passenger side, here are the numbers you can call to get different types of services. If you need a medical trip or a shopping trip, what types of services are available to you and what's the easiest way to get that information. The third piece is establishing a reimbursement per trip schedule from the MPO to HST providers. And, both this has to do with that there are some trips that are getting longer. But the other thing we heard from the providers is that sometimes they would be getting a call from a non-provider nonprofit saying, hey, we need someone who makes a trip. How much will it cost? And there sometimes is almost like a bidding between the two of them. And, one of the providers said, I would rather spend time just transporting people rather than trying to figure out if we can, discuss the price. And so by setting that at one level, it makes it very predictable for the provider to plan their expenses. And then also those who are making appointments on behalf of passengers know what to expect. Other recommendations here, trying to enhance volunteer programs to get more people engaged. We have some terrific volunteer programs in Forsyth County, but how we can bring more people in helps expand the ecosystem. And then just providing information to the community at large. That's more about just telling the story. What's available? Did you know? Next, please. On the medium term side, we have a few different recommendations here. One is about partnerships. And this is about exploring a reimbursement agreement across WISTA, PART, and other fixed route providers that might be able to help with vehicle availability. One of the things, and I'm over in the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area, that we've done in recent years is we've had for about a decade an interlocal reimbursement agreement where if Go Durham has a trip that goes a little bit into Go Raleigh's territory, instead of coming to the county line and making a transfer from one vehicle to another, Go Durham simply just drives into Go Raleigh's territory, reports the mileage that was driven in their territory, and Go Raleigh makes a payment back to them. And it's reconciled, I believe, once a month when everybody goes into the other territory. And what this does is it does a few things. Number one is it eliminates transfers from system to system, which the customer likes. Number two, it makes dispatching much more easier because you don't have to coordinate a transfer. And then it also just makes the trip more like the other trips that you can, it makes it easier for people not to worry about geography because they can know that there's, funding from another region that can come and make a trip possible if it's just a little bit out of the way. The other thing that happens sometimes is, let's say Go Durham is slammed on a given weekday and they say, hey, I've got somebody out here, Go Raleigh, could you provide a vehicle? And they say, oh, actually, we have 4 available today. Well, then we can pick somebody up who otherwise would have had to been told you'll need to wait for another day. So this doesn't work in every region and it doesn't work on every day, but it allows for the vehicle fleets to be more flexible. And it's something for the fixed route providers to explore in the coming years. Next, partnering with job training organizations. So if you are a job trainer and giving somebody some skills, say, well, also, there's this whole ecosystem of transportation that can help you get to the job now that you've got those skills. Encouraging employers to assist with costs of employee transportation in terms of employer-based pass programs. Sometimes those can cut the cost of a bus pass in half or even fully subsidized. Looking further out, trying to provide more frequent WISTA service and expanding WISTA hours and nights, weekends, and Sundays. I know that recently, because of the operator shortage, some agencies, including WISTA, have had to curtail some service. Hopefully, there'll be opportunities to re-expand to a broader number of hours in the future. And then finally, in terms of expanding service for those with disabilities and seniors, just looking at vehicle availability in general, and also maybe how we can expand that geography out a bit further than where we are today. Let's do it in the long term, and that'll be the end of our implementation here. Finally, these are sort of long-term strategic considerations. The first one is really exploring a concept known as central trip brokerage, and to see if that can assign potential users to potential providers through a one-stop phone number. And basically what that is instead of somebody calling WISTA Transaid and then hearing, well, actually, you'd be better served by one of these nonprofit providers, they call one number, and the person hears about the trip on the phone and they're trying to know, oh, you're a great fit for agency XYZ. And they direct the caller to that particular provider. Or if there's an online portal that somebody puts in the needs of the trip and the computer would sort it for them. And that kind of dovetails into actually the third bullet, which is establishing 24/7 trip planning. There are some places, even smaller cities. There's a city that I think is under 100,000 up in Massachusetts that if you log in at 2 a.m, and you want a trip in the afternoon of the next day, you can get put into the queue for the dispatcher if a vehicle is available. So that's just a great customer service opportunity to allow people to plan trips through an online portal. Providing early morning and late night service on fixed route service is definitely a way to expand the capacity of mobility. And then finally, just generally promoting alternative transportation options, especially during off-peak hours, and then also some of the underserved geographic areas that hopefully can be expanded to in that medium-term recommendation. Next, please. So here, I know you've heard a little bit about Matt about the program management plan, but I just want to emphasize 2 of the things that are key in the update for this time. The first is that one of the goals is clarifying the expectations and protocols for providers in terms of what's required regarding 5310 funding and JARC grant funding. And the second one is updating scoring to emphasize 2 key categories: program effectiveness and project budget. And the benefits of doing these activities are really as follows. When you're making out an application, Matt and others on the team are working to make sure that application forms actually are mimicking the behaviors you would do to be a good reporter. So if you're reading the documentation on the MPO website about how to apply and you're filling out the forms correctly, there's also usually an annual webinar where you can get coaching on how to do it. That if you're submitting those applications well, you can feel confident that you'll be able to do the reporting on a regular basis also well and effectively. And then in terms of the scoring criteria, program effectiveness is really getting at how many trips per dollar are you able to carry out, or what's the least dollar per trip you can do it for. This is a way to reward providers that are finding ways to innovate to transport a lot of people, knowing that our funding stream, as we discussed earlier, is limited, and at least limited in compared to the growth in the population that we're trying to serve. And then finally, the project budget. How well is your budget detailed to meet the goals that you're setting out? Do you have clear expenses? Are they reasonable? Do you have a plan to make sure you're staying on budget and task? Next. And I think at this point, we can just take questions. So I'll pass to Matt and see if there was anything he else wanted to add, but otherwise I'd be glad to take questions from anyone.
covered it. If we want to go into more details of questions, that'd be great.
All right, are there any questions for Matt or Patrick? There was a lot of information covered. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a few questions.
Sure, Alex.
Thank you for that really great presentation. I've written a coordinated plan in the past, so I know those are incredibly challenging and complex documents. My first question, you were talking about 5310 funding, not being proportional to the increase in population. I was curious to know, do you anticipate the IIJA positively affecting 5310 allocations moving forward?
So that's a great question, Alex, and we've been asking it ourselves. One of the things I think, and Matt, this was where if you've gotten any communication from FTA to chime in, back in the fall, one of our policy experts had seen that some of the initial guidance on IIJA funding suggested that there could be direct allocations to MPOs. It didn't necessarily specify what programs those could be for, but generally those who track the law and the legal stuff around federal transportation legislation thought if there was within the coronavirus funding, for example, and the CRISA funding, there was money for 5310, which was the second round of federal coronavirus funding. So folks thought lessons had been learned from that if there were funding coming to MPOs, there was a good chance, though nothing certain at this time. But Matt, have you heard anything in addition?
I could definitely speak to there being a pretty significant increase over fiscal year 2022, but anything past that, I'm not really certain of. And like you said, Patrick, we've been awarded some money through CRISA and other similar COVID relief grants that have given us a little extra grant money to work with for our subrecipients.
Okay. So that makes it difficult to kind of project outwards from there. Okay, I get that. My second question is, I've seen, particularly in some of the smaller communities recently, our division deals with this pretty directly. I was curious to know if there had been any conversations or discussion regarding microtransit in regards to this this plan being formulated.
So one of the things that we have going on right now, also within the work HDR and the city are doing together, is that we have a route study for the Winston-Salem Transit Authority. And as Matt and I have been talking, because he's the project manager there, we do think that there are places that are lower productivity where we will probably be having the microtransit conversation sometime over the next year. In terms of the HST plan, we haven't looked at that directly itself here. But Matt, do you want to comment any further on the microtransit piece?
I know that we're already in discussion about microtransit with a provider or two, and I know that, not to speak on Donna's behalf, but it's definitely top of mind for both of us as a significant and potentially concrete solution to a lot of these, at least geographic area issues, availability issues that we've been having.
And Alex, I'd add that I feel like we have a good sort of series of experiments underway. For those who didn't see it, there was actually a highly promoted article at National Public Radio today about Wilson's microtransit switch that has been making the rounds. And I encourage you to read it. Roger Lentz, who I know up there is a real sharp planning director, and what they've put together is very interesting in Wilson. But then also here in the Triangle region, we have had a trial with funding for Uber and Lyft vouchers in Research Triangle Park. That actually improved on the performance of the shuttle system that was here. There are some challenges in that those vehicles were not ADA compatible, and everyone acknowledges that was one of the shortcomings of that pilot. There's also been a pilot in Durham in one of the lower income neighborhoods where instead of Uber and Lyft, they are using a publicly accessible ADA vehicle that is managed by Go Durham. So lots of microtransit seeds being planted, and we'll see how they do.
Do you think there's any benefit to adding it to this plan, I guess, is my question after all that?
I would say at this time, I don't necessarily think adding it here is, required. I think for WISTA, one of the things as we've been having the route planning conversation is there is probably a healthy discussion to be had about how much of WISTA's service area could be perhaps better served by microtransit than by a fixed route. And then I think after that question is addressed, it might be good to come back and revisit, is any of that microtransit also in the HST plan? But after it's been addressed at the fixed route to microtransit continuum first. At least that would be where I stand today.
Okay. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
And somebody, maybe it was you, Alex, put the link to the NPR article in the chat. Thank you, whoever did it.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right, are there any other questions?
This is Suzette. I have a question.
Sure.
Do you, in your plan, do you have a relationship between, do you have a relationship between your plan and emergency preparedness?
As far as I know, that's not one of the, the core pieces of the plan itself. It's more focused on the needs, the regular transportation needs of senior citizens and individuals with disabilities rather than emergency situations. I wonder if Donna might be better positioned to talk about how some of the transit ecosystem works with first responders. I don't have a lot of knowledge about that myself in the city.
Donna might not, there she is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm in and out. I apologize for that. Could you repeat that question, please?
Donna, we were asked a little bit about whether or not the human service transit plan incorporated any emergency transportation elements. And I said that I really wasn't aware. And I just didn't know if WISTA and any of the first responders have coordinations, like if, God forbid, an apartment complex burned down, that WISTA would send buses to help residents relocate to a shelter, anything like that.
Yes, we do have that agreement within the city. So if that should happen, we do coordinate with the City of Winston-Salem's emergency management department, and we do provide services, evacuation services for anyone that needs assistance in the case of that type of emergency.
And that's primarily Winston-Salem and Forsyth County.
Forsyth County, correct.
I was also going to say too that in the early stages of the plan, we had discussed including COVID-19 as like a section of the plan and a reflection of how human services transit was operating under COVID-19. But then we realized that that fell under the umbrella of emergency preparedness, and that the city or the MPO would be better suited to just have an emergency preparedness plan that addresses that specifically, in lieu of just making it a subsection of a larger plan that addresses so many other topics.
Thank you.
All right, great questions. Other questions? Very good. All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Patrick. We will move on to our last item, which is a review of an amendment to the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 Unified Planning Work Program for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Real quickly, this is a review of our annual fiscal year 2022-2023 UPWP. All metropolitan planning areas, planning organizations that have been designated as transportation management areas are required to develop a work program in coordination with Federal Transit Administration. Each year, the MPO is required to develop this program for the transportation and transit planning. The UPWP identifies what transportation and transit planning projects and work tasks will be completed during the fiscal year, and the estimated amount of federal and state highway and transit planning funds that will be used to complete the work, plus the required local matches. Earlier this year, on March 17th of 2022, the TAC did approve our current UPWP, and per our federally funded project methodology, we awarded 5% of the our annual DA call for projects to the UPWP for planning studies. Staff is then now recommending that $52,000 of these funds be used for Davidson County Transportation Community Transportation Service Plan. DCD would be responsible for providing the match of $13,000. as well as staff is recommending that the Village of Clements pedestrian plan be moved from the prior fiscal year to the current one, which is fiscal year 2022-2023, since the project was delayed. The UWP amendment is attached for your review.
All right, any questions for Kelly? Hearing none, we will move to our staff reports. And let's see, we'll start with NCDOT Division 9 Transportation Projects Update, Pat Ivy.
Very good, thank you. Your report is shown right there. Just a couple of updates to tell you about. The report is self-explanatory, but one of the things we're dealing with on some of our projects that are under construction is the delay in receiving certain materials, such as ductile iron pipe for water line, sewer line replacements, concrete pipe, and just to name a few. What it means is that we've got a couple of projects, for example, the AB section of the Beltway, the EB section of the Beltway, B5770, and a couple of others that are actually under construction, but things are slowed down a little bit because of the availability of some of these materials. This is a statewide issue that we're dealing with, and we are, of course, trying to work through it. A lot of these are due to the manufacturers who are not able to secure enough people in these plants to provide the materials as they had before. Just the logistics issues that we're dealing with nationwide is another part of that. So just letting you know, for example, B5770, that project was, which is the bridge over Peters Creek Parkway on Salisbury Ridge Road. That project was awarded a couple of months ago, and it's probably going to be later this fall before construction actually starts on that project because of the utility issues. The new Beltway project 2579AB, while the contractor is doing a lot of work on Interstate 40, we are having some issues with water and sewer line materials that are needed to really get into that project. So we're hopeful we won't see any major delays, but just making sure that all of you all are aware that that is something we are dealing with NCDOT. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. We do have a spot safety project that I want to make sure everybody was aware of at the intersection of Transu Road and Yadkinville Road. We've actually been working on that project for a couple of years, but we're finally trying to wrap up some utility relocations, and we anticipate constructing that turn lane on Transu this summer in time for school, before school starts. The Beltway project DENF is still on schedule to be open to traffic later this fall, probably in late October, early November. I did want to mention, because we've gotten a lot of questions about it, the spot safety project on University Parkway at Cherry Street, work basically stopped on that for a while. The issue is materials. We had to add some upgrades to a drainage pipe on that project, and we're having trouble getting the materials. So that project was delayed. We're trying to get those materials in so the contractor can wrap that project up as well. Moving on to another topic, we, of course, Kelly and I gave a report at our last meeting on the development of the draft 2024-2033 STIP. I know that most of you are probably aware, with the passage of the new state budget, that there was some additional funding, potential funding that was provided to DOT that we believe will actually help us in terms of programming in this draft TIP. I believe that Van Argebright and David Wasserman have provided some preliminary information to some of the MPOs in terms of the schedule for the release of the draft and the final approval. We're waiting for some final revenue numbers to come in so that they can get a better picture of, are there additional projects that may be able to be brought in to that 10-year program. We believe that there will be. The magnitude we just don't know at this point. So hopefully we'll get some good news in the next couple of months once we get that information together. So it could impact some of the drop-in public sessions that we're trying to schedule for the TIP. Could also impact the swap calendar. In other words, maybe giving a little bit more time to have those discussions. So there'll be more information coming out later, but I just wanted to share that with you, and especially for those that may not have known about those positive developments. So that is my report, and unless there are any further questions.
Thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions? Are there any questions for Pat? Sorry. All right. Thanks again, Pat. Next, we'll go with Kelly Garvin for the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO Transportation Project Update.
Really nothing beyond what's in the report currently. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kelly? All right. Next, NCDOT Transportation Planning Update. Pam, will you be covering this item, or will Andy?
I will, but I'm gonna, Andy, did you want to say anything at first?
Sure, I can. I don't know if you guys recognize the thoroughfare plan behind me or not. It's Winston-Salem from years ago. Anyway, this is Pam. I want to introduce Pam Cook. I hired her, about a month and a half ago now, Pam, for the Winston-Salem and Burlington Graham MPO coordinator position. I'll let Pam go into more of her history, but she's very much been around and knows a ton of information regarding transportation planning. And I'll let Pam take it away.
All right, thank you. So we'll say with my newsletter, my contact information is in the newsletter. So if there's ever any type of information that any of you would like me to include in it, please feel free to reach out to me and say it would be nice if this were added to the newsletters or whatever. I am really happy to be working with Winston-Salem. Y'all were, when I graduated from NC State and came to work with NCDOT in the Transportation Planning Division, Winston-Salem was my first MPO that I worked with. So I feel like I'm coming back home. I started to put in there how many years ago that was, and that just made me sound like I was ancient. And so I took out the number of years. But I had the chance to come back and work with Winston-Salem MPO intermittently while I was staying home raising my two boys. I'd come back and do some part-time work and filled in for coordinators. But I'm really happy to be back with y'all. And in my newsletters, I try to put information that I feel like will be helpful to you or either your constituents for you to pass on to others. I try to let you know what work Transportation Planning Division is doing. We currently don't have any traffic forecast going on in the area. I put a little bit of information about me in there. There is the multimodal freight plan. And just to let you know that the draft plan will be coming out in the near future. So just keep checking the website for information. They're really good about posting information, the latest information on the website that's provided. And then in the FHWA news part, I put three of my favorite links for just information that I hope you'll also find helpful. On the second page, I've put, Pat already covered about the potential changes to the draft STIP, but there will be coming up at some point the public involvement meetings that you'll hear about. I always put a list of upcoming deadlines for MPOs that they'll be going to. And then these are links I put here in the newsletter. I used to highlight an article for my other MPOs. And I realized if a new staff member came or went, or a board member came or went and missed the newsletter that had that program, then they didn't know about that website. So these are websites in connection to statewide plans that I feel like it's just always nice for you to have that information. So they're there. If you need me to send you an electronic copy, reach out to me by email so that you can just click on those links. Otherwise, you can do a search for that title under ncdot.gov or the Connect website. I wanted to let you know about the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. That information's there. And also about the Reconnecting Communities funding opportunity. I encourage you to look at that. And that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Lots of great information. Does anyone have questions for Pam? Welcome back to the MPO.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
All right, we'll go next to NCDOT Integrated Mobility Division. Alex.
All right. Well, everyone's heard a lot from me today already, so I'll try to keep this brief. So for those that haven't met me yet, Alex Ruttenberry, Integrated Mobility Division, part of our regional planning team here. And my particular region is the Western Piedmont, which includes the entirety of the Triad, as well as the Central Carolina area down in the Charlotte area. And so as for those that or those that may know us well, or those that are just being introduced to us, I'm putting in the chat here a rather lengthy message here, cut and pasted from an email that our Deputy Director of Planning sent out a couple of weeks ago. So a week from tomorrow, so next Wednesday, we are having our next, they say it's quarterly, but I feel like this is only the second one of the year, and we're now halfway through the year. But anyway, so we're having our second quarterly webinar. I'm not aware, I'm not part of this planning process for this webinar, but they did list a number of programs that we support that I included in that comment in the chat box. So it could be about a number of different things that we're working on, either on an annual basis, include like our multimodal planning grants. Sorry, I'm getting over illness, so I may have to mute myself to cough. Our bicycle helmet initiative that we do every year, or things along that line. Okay, better. So I sent out this email with a little bit more of the contact information to Kelly, and I'm hopeful that she'll be able to send that out after this meeting today. This is for anybody. So anybody is welcome, anyone from the TCC, the TAC, anyone that works at your communities, they're all welcome to come and learn about what we're doing in terms of multimodal planning and projects here in North Carolina with the DOT. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that we had one of our monthly meetings with transit agencies yesterday, and I learned some new stuff that was really interesting that I'm also going to share in the chat now. We had someone from the Office of State Budget and Management come to our monthly meeting for transit agencies, and she works in the Office of Strategic Partnerships as a philanthropy liaison, interestingly. And she gave us a couple of links. There's actually 3 links in there, so I'm sorry, they all came up scrambled. So we tried putting those in individually. But they have a they have an email they send out sporadically about funding opportunities. They also have a website that has a list of grant opportunities from all kinds of different state organizations that may be useful to those that are looking for money to do various projects. And then the last thing they sent is they had a really great kind of resource. I don't know what to call it. Just a link of resources for people that are like applying for grants, etc. And so now I've put those into 3 separate links that I put in the chat box as opposed to one weird massive link. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm trying to present that to other folks such as this MPO and other MPOs that I work with, just so that you guys are aware that these resources from perhaps an unexpected area are there for you. So I think that's really all I had to say. I hope that you're able to join us next week for our webinar, and I hope that these resources are of some value to you as well. So thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions for Alex? All right, we'll move to Federal Highways update. Suzette.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just a few updates, mostly just about the grants that are now active and then a little bit about the census. So there's the Bridge Investment Program. There's a grant out for that. And the planning portion of it, the planning grant, that deadline is July 25th. So that's in, I guess, like 4 days. So if you have any interest in it, whether the MPO or any municipality, please make sure to apply for it. There's also the large bridge projects grant. That deadline is the 9th and then of August, and then other bridge projects, that's September 8th. And then there's another grant out there through the bill, which is the Safe Streets for All grant. This one is different from all the other grants, of course, because the states cannot apply for this. They are not eligible to apply. So this one is for developing a safety action plan or a grant to implement safety projects. So this application is due on the 15th of September. Then the next one is the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Grant. Pam had that in her newsletter. So, that's an easy way to access the grant. So that one, the application is due on October 13th. And that's for capital and planning. So, what's great about that one is you can use it to anything that, reconnects your community or provides those connections for areas that such as like retrofitting or mitigating highways or other transportation facilities to be able to like close those barriers that limited your communities from being connected. So those are the three that are pretty much the deadlines are coming up pretty quickly for them. So please look out and, read the NOFOs and to get any additional information. And a lot of them have webinars as well. And then the last one is a census update. The census in March, they posted in the Federal Register a notice about the final definitions or the final criteria for defining urban areas. So in the fall of this year, they will publish a notice announcing all the areas that actually qualified to be urban areas. And they'll also have those shape files available for you to download. And so you can see as you're preparing your area for transportation planning, how your area qualifies and any boundary adjustments, preparing for any boundary adjustments that need to be made. So please be on the lookout for that notice, and then I'll also make sure to send it out to you guys as well. Those are the updates that I have for you.
Very good. Thank you, Suzette. Are there any questions for Suzette?
No questions, but I am curious if anybody else we're looking into the safety action from the Village of Clements. I already asked Kelly if MPO was applying. I think she said no. I was wondering if anybody else on this chat is also considering pursuing the safety action plan. I'll take that as a no. Thanks.
Might just be you, NASA.
I also know the Greensboro MPO, I believe they're going to be submitting an application to that as well. So if you want to reach out to them for any questions, you can certainly reach out to either Lydia or Tyler Meyer about that.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, I'm going to flip through those rather quickly here. Forsyth County OEAP air quality update, Carrie?
I have nothing to report beyond what's in the report that you have online right now.
All right, any questions for Carrie? Okay, bicycle and pedestrian facilities project update, Matthew?
Thank you, Tanika. Very quickly, I saw this a link in Pam's update actually, but the Great Trail State Plan is posted on the NCDOT website now, and the Piedmont Regional Greenway through RMPO is prominently featured as a potential spine within that plan. So I'll just post a link to that plan so people can check that out. Certainly an impact on some projects that we have planned and funded. So probably worth a look for the communities that are affected.
Very good, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew? All right, Winston-Salem Transit Authority update, Donna?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have nothing in addition to the report that you have attached, but I'll entertain any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Donna? All right, thank you, Donna. Piedmont Authority for Regional Transportation update, Mark?
Thank you, Tanika. I have two items. First of all, the 4 MPOs have kicked off their household travel survey. This is a very important element to the regional travel demand model that the MPOs use to develop their MTPs. This household travel survey will touch everyone. Anyone here in the region will have an opportunity to take the survey. There are some incentives as well to be able to do that. There is a minimum number of samples and surveys that need to be collected, and it sounds like a small number given our area, but these types of surveys have proven to be very difficult in recent years. So you will hear more about it. There's going to be a very, very active campaign through the MPOs, cities and counties to reach out to everyone. So this includes all the TCC members and the individual jurisdictions. Any assistance and help that you can provide when you see information showing up on websites, and when Kelly sends you information to say, please post this on your town webpage, please do so. This is a very large expenditure as well by the state and the 4 MPOs to complete this survey. So again, it's extremely important. Not only is it going to provide information for the regional travel demand model, but just a lot of general travel information that the MPOs can use. This is the first time this has been done in over 8 years in our area, and it will probably be another 8 to 10 years before it's done again. The second thing is related to our scenario planning and growth allocation project to develop socioeconomic data for the travel demand model. There is a workshop that each of you have been invited to. This is a little bit more centered on our jurisdictions and not so much our NCDOT partners, but we'll be holding a workshop, next Wednesday, July 27th from 2 to 3:30. Kelly is narrowing down the location. This is one of those opportunities to have a in-person meeting, and we're going to go through again the importance of this project, talking about some of the things that we've learned, and then we will need to be getting prepared and geared up to do this growth allocation for real and official for the model early next year. So it's another important step in the process, but also if you have not been engaged with this project yet, another good way to learn about it, because each jurisdiction can have a lot of flexibility in terms of how we are going to generate growth allocation for the future horizon years. It can very much be under your control, or and that needs your assistance. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Okay, we will move on to Davidson County Transportation update. Richard?
Hello, just one on our transition to become FTA direct recipient. The project is picking up some steam. I think we're getting closer. Of all the materials we presented to them, the financials, legal, and technical stuff have been approved. Got one item on procurement I need to fix. And then we're just waiting on the subject matter expert for civil rights to finish the review of our materials for that. So it's coming along.
Yay.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, any questions for Richard? Okay, thanks, Richard. Title VI compliance update, Marlene.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Tanique. I have nothing to report at this time.
Very good. Any questions for Marlene? All right, MPO calendar of activities, Hunter?
Nothing beyond what you can see on the report itself. Thanks.
Very good. Any questions for Hunter? All right. Ethics liaison, Kelly?
Nothing to report. We're all good.
Very good. It's always good to hear. Any questions for Kelly? All right. Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act update for the municipality. I think Suzette may have covered this, but Hunter, did you have anything additional?
That's absolutely right. Suzette covered pretty much the entirety here. The only thing that I would add is we included some helpful notes that might assist individual municipalities in their application process, specifically a lot of GIS and other like webinar oriented resources. So just wanted to put that out there, but other than that, yep, it's all been covered today. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Any questions for Hunter? All right, then our next meeting is scheduled for September 15th. And our next meeting, put on your calendars, will be a face-to-face meeting. It will be at the Johnson V. Johnson Municipal Services Center, Suite 122, which is our facility on Lowry Street. And we hope to see everyone there. At that time, we will have at least other items, but one of the items we will consider is an item to consider us going virtually, except with the exceptions that Kelly mentioned earlier. But we need you all to come and hope to see all of you there. Any questions about that? No. All right, then I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. We do not need to vote on that. We are adjourned. Have a safe and cool afternoon, and we will see you September 15th, if not sooner.
Thank you.